And I want to welcome everyone in our audience to our industry insiders. Thank you for joining us. It's brought to you all through our Alumni Engagement Office at TCNJ. And my name is Pam Persichetti. I'm the Alumni Engagement Officer. And like I said, thanks for joining us. I think this is really going to be valuable to you all. We have some great panelists with us that are experts in their respective fields. So I will introduce them both right now. We have Phillip Godorov, who is a graduate of Johns Hopkins University and went on to get his MBA and JD from Rutgers University in 2010. And then he went on to open the Godorov Estate Planning Law Firm, which is located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, under normal circumstances. Right now, during the pandemic, Phillip is doing house calls, he let me know, which is an awesome thing to offer his clients. So you can all keep that in mind as well. And Phillip also is a special needs sister he grew up with. And so this has been a subject that's been near and dear to his heart for a long time, and something that he has a lot of experience in. So we're happy to have him join us and present with to us today. And joining him, we have Jerry Petroff, who is a 1975 grad of TSC. And he is also the director of the Career and Community Studies program, as well as a professor at the college. And Jerry is going to share with us some of the goals and overview and additional details of the CCS program, and really what a unique program it is, and what a great thing it is for the unique population that it serves. So gentlemen, thank you both for joining us, and I don't want to take up any more time, so I will turn it over to Phillip. He's going to share his screen and begin his presentation.
Thank you.
I'm just going to turn my camera off, but I will be here, and I will facilitate any questions that come through the chat or the Q&A. I did want to add that we will be doing a Q&A after Phillip's portion, and then a separate Q&A after Jerry's.
Excellent. I'll try to keep an eye on the chat box as well. But yeah, please feel free to jump in and let me know if I missed something. Welcome, everybody. Phillip Godorov. My contact information is at the bottom of every slide. And feel free to reach out to me at any time. Big legal disclaimer. I've got it in the beginning. I've got it again at the end. Essentially, the most important part for you to remember is that this presentation does not constitute legal advice. It does not form an attorney-client privilege, and any emails that you might send to me in and of themselves do not qualify for an attorney-client relationship or privilege. If we decide to work together, then we will set up a separate agreement as to that. So I will give you the best information that I have today, and just remember, laws change all the time. So something that might be true today might not be true tomorrow. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the situation. So, you know, why am I here? Why should you listen to me? So going way back to the beginning, the son of a mom with a disability. So I grew up from the age essentially of 10 years on until my mom passed away, living with her and her disability and being a caretaker to the best of my abilities. The brother to a sister with special needs. So from the time I was 4 years old on, I've known that situation. I've been happily married now for almost 29 years. In just a couple of weeks, it'll be 29 years. And I'm the father to an amazing daughter, so I know what it's like to want to protect your family. I graduated from Johns Hopkins in 3 years. I went on to become a scientist. I went back to school, got my MBA and my JD, and I've been practicing just estate planning since 2010. I kind of feel that there's so many aspects to law that if you really don't focus, there's way too much to miss. And that's Chloe in the background. So some things that I work with, some things that I deal with that absolutely everybody needs to consider. And if you are over 18, you should be thinking about and have a healthcare power of attorney. And that names the person who makes medical decisions for you when you can't. When you can't make your wishes known, this gives that power to somebody else. It's very, very important that when you assign a healthcare power of attorney, you've spoken to this person and they understand what you want. You understand what they're willing to do, because in your advance directive, the very next thing, you're giving instructions as to your healthcare wishes. And if the person that you gave your healthcare power of attorney to doesn't agree with your wishes, they're not going to follow them. There's no legal obligation. So it's very, very important to have that important conversation with whomever it is that you choose to have your healthcare power of attorney. There's also a financial power of attorney that everybody needs. And just like healthcare, you're naming somebody to make healthcare decisions for you. Your financial power of attorney takes over and makes money decisions for you when you can't. And it doesn't matter whether that means you're out of the country traveling and something needs to be taken care of, or you are physically incapable of making those decisions and taking care of yourself. And finally, a will. That the will names your guardians for any minor children and it distributes your property. But the will only goes into effect once you've passed away. So any wishes that you have in there don't have no effect until you die. Now, on top of that, some people also need possibly a special needs trust. And the special needs trust creates a structured legal entity to protect assets for qualified individuals. And I'll talk about special needs trusts a little bit more. There's also, since 2014, we have the option of also working with ABLE accounts. And that legislation was passed and named the Achieving a Better Life Experience. These are phenomenal options for a large segment of the population that feel like a special needs trust is beyond what their family needs at the moment. And then there are revocable trusts and irrevocable trusts that are included in some estate plans, and these help ensure privacy and control of a family's assets. The revocable trusts are assets, or ways to take care of your assets while you're alive if potentially you won't be making those decisions. So a special needs trust. Absolutely, positively, these should be created by a qualified attorney. This is not something that you want to try to do by yourself. And I would highly recommend, I've never seen an off-the-shelf version, like a fill-in-the-blank special needs trust, but if one exists, I would highly recommend that you don't go that route. There are so many nuances to a special needs trust that you really need to approach that judiciously. There are no limit on the assets that can be included in a special needs trust, which is why some people choose this over an ABLE account. You could include money, stocks, you could include property, you could include a house. This is a good way to go if it meets your needs. Now, a special needs trust can be ordered by a court under some circumstances. It can either be set up with your own assets, and that would be a first-party special needs trust, or it can be funded with assets from either a parent or a grandparent. and that would be considered a third-party special needs trust. In any case, whether it's first party or third party, whether it's court ordered or it's something that you decide to do on your own, again, highly recommend that you work with an attorney. The special needs trust, the uses are controlled by the specific terms of the trust. So a special needs trust can be either more restrictive or less restrictive, depending on how it's written, and it can be even more restrictive than an ABLE account. So the uses for the funds and the assets in that account can be tied up in very specific ways. A residual beneficiary can be named in some circumstances. So especially if you're working with a third-party trust being set up by a parent or a grandparent, then a residual beneficiary, after the initial beneficiary has passed away, then parents or grandparents setting up a trust could name a residual beneficiary who gets the assets after the first person is no longer in need. Assets might also be protected from government reimbursement, which is very important to a lot of families. There are ways to word the trust such that expenditures by the government for the care of the individual with special needs would not be reimbursed from any residual funds in that trust. And highly detailed reporting and accounting requirements are part of the basis of a special needs trust. So again, something to think about when you're setting this up. How is it going to be administered going forward? Now with ABLE accounts, these can be created with or without the help of a qualified attorney. You're able to set up an ABLE account on your own. You can go online. If you need assistance or you think you'd prefer assistance, you can certainly work with an attorney on that, but it is definitely not a requirement. ABLE accounts are state specific, and each state sets its own limits on the assets that can be included in that state's ABLE account plan. Now you can shop. In many instances, you can shop around as to which state you would like to put your ABLE account in the control of that state. So for instance, New Jersey allows people from out of state to use their ABLE accounts. Now you can only have one ABLE account, so you'll really want to do some research to find out which one has the benefits that best meet your needs. Now, the designated beneficiary of the ABLE account is the owner. So as soon as money is, or any assets, as soon as they go into that ABLE account, then the beneficiary has access to them. The person who puts the money in no longer has any control over that asset or over that money. In order to open an ABLE account, and I believe this is universal across all states' plans, your disability must have begun before the age of 26. Now, you can start the plan after age 26, but only if the disability was documented before age 26. Now, anybody at all can contribute, and you can contribute up to a total of $15,000 per year. Now, that goes across all ABLE accounts, the $15,000 a year limit. However, I did a little research, and in New Jersey, some employment income may be contributed by the owner. So if you happen to have an ABLE account and you are the beneficiary, but you are also able to work and have some earned income, and just so I don't get it wrong, I printed out the plan, and ABLE account owners can contribute In excess of the $15,000 contribution limit, the additional annual contribution amount allowed is equal to the federal poverty level in a one-person household in your state of residence. So if you happen to have a New Jersey able account, but you don't live in New Jersey, then that would be controlled by your state of residence. Or the account owner's gross wages, whichever is less. And individuals may not be eligible if they're already contributing to a retirement through a defined contribution plan, an annuity contract, or an eligible deferred compensation plan. Now, I don't do tax law, so I would highly recommend if you fall under these circumstances and are interested in contributing to the account in excess of the $15,000 and you have earned income, that you work with your accountant to make sure that none of the limits are exceeded. Now, the ABLE account, any money in the ABLE account may only be used for qualified disability expenses, and those are listed. There's on the New Jersey ABLE account website, you can see what it is that you can use those expenses for. I have some examples coming up. Medicaid recovery may be required from the estate with a New Jersey account. However, other states have provisions that prevent Medicaid recovery. So again, if that's an issue, you might want to shop around. And some states allow for debit card access to the funds. New Jersey does. And this is a fantastic benefit that really helps with record keeping. If all of your expenses are paid for with the debit card through your ABLE account, you're not trying to keep receipts. You would just have to record what those expenses were for. Now, New Jersey ABLE accounts, there's a $305,000 account limit. Any balance over $100,000 counts as an SSI resource, but $100,000 or less and your assets are not counted as an SSI resource. Again, huge benefit. These may be open for out-of-state residents, the New Jersey accounts. An account owner may be able to contribute up to $12,490 of earnings. That's the limit in New Jersey for New Jersey residents. And there are 6 investment options available, everything from a high yield savings account through mutual funds and ETFs. So you decide how you want the assets invested in your ABLE account. Unfortunately, New Jersey does not allow for an income tax deduction for contributions. But again, if you are a resident of another state, sometimes that is allowed if you put your ABLE account in control with that state. New Jersey has a quarterly maintenance fee, and that can be as low as $11.25. It depends whether you're getting paper statements or all electronic. And again, I mentioned the debit card purchasing is an option. Medicaid is not affected since estate recovery is available to the estate. What makes you eligible to open an ABLE account? So you're eligible if your disability was present before the age of 26 and at least one of the following is true. You are eligible for SSI or SSDI because of your disability. You experience blindness as determined by the Social Security Act, or you have a similarly severe disability with a written diagnosis from a licensed physician, and that can be produced if requested. So you don't need to have that in order to open the account, but you do need to be able to back up your claim if asked. You must self-certify that you have one of the following. Blindness is defined by the Social Security Act, SSA, or a medically determinable physical or mental impairment with marked severe function limitations that has lasted or is expected to last at least 12 continuous months or result in death, and you must have a written disability-related diagnosis signed by a physician. This has to be recertified annually to keep your ABLE account. Now, what can you use the ABLE account assets for? You can use them to pay for education, health and wellness, housing, transportation. You'll see these are pretty broad categories. You can pay legal fees, financial management fees, employment training or support, assistive technology can be paid for with these funds, personal support services, oversight and monitoring, and then even funeral and burial expenses. Some of the many other options available when you're looking and you're shopping around for an ABLE account. First of all, if you look right nearby in Pennsylvania, the account limit, instead of being $305,000 in New Jersey, the account limit is $511,758. State law in Pennsylvania prohibits Medicaid estate recovery from an ABLE account. And if you happen to live in Pennsylvania and you're a Pennsylvania taxpayer, you can deduct contributions to your Pennsylvania ABLE account. Similarly, New York has a plan. In New York, that's only available if you are a New York resident. It has a slightly higher limit of $520,000, and any state, doesn't matter which state is paying out for services, but any state may file a claim for Medicaid estate recovery if you have a New York plan. So what should you do now? Basically, review the plan that you have. So if you do have an estate plan, go in there and review it. I've found that with most of the people that I work with, your plan can change. Your plan can change yearly. Your plan can change every couple of years. People move into your plan, people move out of your plan. The person that you thought would be a great trustee or a great guardian no longer fits that description. So review the plan that you've got and make sure that it is up to your current needs. You need to make sure that every loved one has a healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and a will. And that's everyone over the age of 18. So if you have a student going off to college or staying home for college, once they turn 18, that healthcare power of attorney will allow you to make decisions for them should they need your help. Consider your family's needs. You can check out the ABLE National Resource Center that's available online, and it has information from every state and allows you to compare different states to see which option is best for you. You should definitely consult a qualified estate planning attorney if you have any questions at all. Don't hold these questions in. Don't say you'll get to it tomorrow, because my last point is don't put this off. Tomorrow is promised to none of us. So, especially with everything that's happened in the past few months, I think we're all painfully aware that you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Get in there. If this is something that would benefit your family or someone whom it would benefit, definitely make sure they act on it. And I see Pam is back.
I am back. Phillip, thank you so much. That was
I'm just going to put up that disclaimer again. Okay.
This was great. Thank you. This is a wonderful overview. I know it was a lot of information, but that is certainly why we're making it available and why you are available for questions.
Sure.
But a great overview and really just a good starting point for anyone who has, you know, questions to get where to get started.
Yeah.
And we do have a couple questions. Stephanie wrote, "What is Medicaid recovery?"
Okay, Medicaid recovery is after you pass away. If there is money left in your either special needs trust or ABLE account, that Medicaid is able to go back and essentially sue your estate to be paid back for any expenses that they covered while you were alive.
All right, great. And Stephanie, I want to acknowledge some of the questions that we received via email. Hopefully, Philip did answer your other question throughout his presentation. And I received another question via email that was a bit more personal of a scenario. So Philip, I did not get a name along with that question, but Philip suggests reaching out to him directly for that one, as it is a little bit too narrow to address in the presentation.
Let me just, briefly address the question had to do with a blind beneficiary, and there was no mention of age or, family circumstances, but the question was, how do you control housing, or how do you allow for housing and make arrangements for housing for somebody if you are their guardian and you're taking care of them, once you're gone. And that is usually best taken care of. If the person's able to live on their own, then housing expenses can be covered by an ABLE account. If there's a situation where you would need a trustee to be taking charge of that situation, a special needs trust might be more appropriate. And housing arrangements can even be made inside of a special needs trust. As I said, a house could be placed in trust. So, that is an option that is available. But it will be super specific as to each situation. So if that person would like to reach out to me, I may be able to get more information and come up with a more thorough answer.
Sure, great, thank you, thank you. And we have, if you could do a short list of things to avoid.
Things to avoid. Okay, this is one of my favorite things to go through. Things to avoid. I have seen clients who decide that, well, they have one child with special needs, they have another child with no special needs. They will leave all of their assets to the child with no special needs in the hopes of preserving benefits for the child with special needs and counting on their sibling to just take care of them. They say, okay, my family gets along great, everybody loves each other. Well, there are a couple of things that can go wrong. One, people change, and the person who was really, the tops on your list for caring for their sibling, that just might not work out. They could get divorced, in which case, if you've just given them money and they have it in their family bank account, that's an open asset that can be gone after. They could, God forbid, get into an accident or be sued if they have assets in their name, even though they were meant essentially to care for someone else. If the asset's in their name and they back out of their driveway and run over their neighbor's prized puppy, and they get sued for $1 million, those assets are all attachable, and the money that you thought would be there is gone. So, you really have to think about everything that could possibly happen and plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Okay, and we did get a couple more questions while you were answering that one. Can you have an ABLE account and a special needs trust?
Yes.
And would you want both?
That's entirely up to you and up to the situation, because it might be that you have, let's say in New Jersey, you have a $305,000 limit. Let's say you're very, very lucky and you have parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles or somebody who wants to give or leave you a larger sum of money. Well, the only way that they can do that and keep it protected would be to do it through a special needs trust. Not everybody is in that situation. You might want a special needs trust. Again, if you're trying to put a house in trust for your beneficiary, that can't go into the ABLE account. So you might have an ABLE account for expenses and a special needs trust for a property. So there are ways to mix and match and blend the two if you need it. Most people choose one or the other, but there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't have both. But you can only have one ABLE account. You can't have one in New Jersey and one in Pennsylvania and one in New York and have limits in each one.
Okay, good point. Thank you. All right, and it looks like our last question, excuse me. What happens to the funds in a special needs trust after an individual passes away?
That's controlled by the wording and the way that the special needs trust is created. So as I pointed out, if you have a third-party special needs trust, so a parent or a grandparent is putting assets into trust in a special needs trust, they can name a beneficiary, a residual beneficiary. So the first beneficiary would be the person with special needs that would have the benefit of the trust while they're alive. And then after they pass away, there would be a residual beneficiary. But it could be a person, it could be a charity, it could go back into their estate. There are so many options, but it is controlled by the very specific language of the trust. That's why I was saying special needs trusts are super structured.
Okay, and looks like we are getting a lot of questions. How much or how little money is needed to open an ABLE account?
I believe the minimum is $25. And in New Jersey, the maximum is $305,000. That's the maximum account balance. You can't open it with $305,000. The most you can put in is $15,000 per year, unless the beneficiary also has earned income, and then they can contribute up to, I think it was $12,490 additionally in New Jersey. But it's based on each state's single family poverty limit.
That's right, okay. And let's see, what can be taken from your funds that are protected by the special needs trust?
I don't entirely understand by what can be taken from the funds. Like if you're talking about Medicaid recovery, then after you passed away, any assets that are left in that trust, if the trust isn't structured to protect it, to protect those assets, then they would all be available for Medicaid recovery. But again, it depends how the trust is structured and how it had been administered.
Okay. All right, great. And we have a couple other questions here, but I want to save time for Jerry and his presentation, sure. and they look like they may be a little lengthier. So I will certainly pass them on to Phillip and connect you both if needed after the presentation. Sure. But I would love to say it for Jerry and welcome him back. Phillip, thank you so much.
Of course.
I'm back. Here I am. Hi, Phillip. Yes, it's interesting to note, while Phillip is here, that the ABLE accounts were established in 2014. I'm not an expert on this, but the advocates that promoted what I'm about to talk about were the same advocates who petitioned Congress to establish these kind of counts. And their impetus, although it's not the only, was so that families could gather money to pay for post-secondary education or college for students. And some of those advocates are good friends of mine. So thanks, Philip.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, and just in case I didn't make it clear, anybody can contribute to an ABLE account. So friends, families, neighbors, you can have a crowdfunding that funds your ABLE account. It's open to anybody at all to contribute.
Wow, good. Okay, so we're going to switch in a way, right? So I'm going to share my screen, and then we're going to I'm going to try to do this the right way. Don't look at my screen, my background here, because it's so terrible thing. But here we go. So what we're going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about, really does parlay with a lot of things that Philip had said, because right now, families of students with intellectual and developmental disabilities have much more options than they've ever had before, and students do, in regards to post-school continuing of education. So what I'm about to talk about is a unique program that we have at the College of New Jersey that falls under the label of inclusive college programs for youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So what is inclusive ed? Let me talk a little bit about that. Inclusive higher education is this term of art. It means a term that we use to refer to a specific area of programs and services for kids with disabilities, or any professional arena. But it really refers to the incorporation of students with disabilities, specifically students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, into the fabric of university or college learning and life. What we found over 20 years ago, we had an epiphany in the field. We realized that Piaget, the psychologist who taught us and who has identified the fact that our young people are not fully grown. Our brains are not fully developed until we're at least 25 years old. My sons, don't like when I tell them that, but it's really true. So, but what we found was that kids who went to college, kids who went to, and excuse me if you hear the landscapers, you can't stop some of them. So kids who go to college between the ages of 18 and 25 lived at college, was experiencing the study of a liberal education, philosophy, social justice, socialization amongst its own peers and peers a little older than them, a little younger than them. They experienced growth in cognitive development. So therefore, we said, as a field of special educators, then why do we exempt those emerging adults with intellectual disabilities from this enterprise? Wouldn't they benefit from that? And that started this movement of inclusive higher education, inclusive education in higher education. Many of us have known that we have been promoting the inclusion of students with disabilities in general education, K-12 programs for many years. Actually, since 1975, when the IDEA, Federal Right to Education, was established. But inclusive education in higher education really was giving students with intellectual and developmental disability an opportunity to experience the same type of intellectual growth in academics than their peers did without disabilities. So the College of New Jersey started its program that I'll explain today back over 18 years ago. Okay, I was one of the founders of the program, and when I first came to the college, we thought, well, gee, maybe it would be a good idea if we started a program for kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and let's see though who else is doing this. At the time, there was one other four-year institution that had a program that really was based on this kind of premise, that we were going to do inclusion within courses. And what I'm talking about is kids taking classes, living on campus life, and taking classes within TCNJ with everyone else, all typically enrolled students. That was 18 years ago. Today, we have over 265 programs for students with ID across the United States, including places like Harvard, Yale, Purdue, many in Florida. We have several of them here in New Jersey, and Washington University. We have many all over the country, and it's growing. So it's growing into this higher education movement, which still is in its infancy, because anything in education that isn't more than 100 years old seems to be just beginning. We take a long time to incorporate our research into practice. So we established, and we're part of this social civil rights movement, which is what it's called and what it's labeled as today, to move colleges in a direction that it would adequately provide for those students with intellectual and developmental disabilities that would want to go to college or have a college experience. So the Career and Community Studies program at TCNJ through the School of Education was established. And we admitted our first class of students, 6 of them in 2006. We then became very active in the national movement and were part of the advocates and advocacy to influence the reauthorization of the Higher Education Opportunities Act, which is the Higher Education Act that provides federal money to all colleges across the United States, that kind of guidelines the parameters of it, etc. And so back then, the reauthorization said, you know what, this is important. So they sanctioned these programs and even provided funds to expand inclusive education programs across the country. Their first round of grants we received to help us grow those programs, and there was a second round that we also were a part of, and we're hoping in the next 2 weeks we hear about the third round that we will get. Only 26 programs at any given year get those funds. We've been fortunate enough to receive those funds through grant writing. So what's our program like? Okay, every program, just like every college, is different. Our Career and Community Studies program is a college-based program. It's for kids with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We admit our students with a specialized course of study for the purposes of completing this liberal learning college experience. So in other words, you'll see, and I'll give you an example of it, that our students take are admitted as a cohort, freshman cohort, that go to be sophomores, juniors, etc. And in the beginning, they are a cohort in which we have specialized classes that will support their development in independent living, in socialization, etc., as well as academic improvement, just like all of our students on campus, improve their reading, writing, and academic skills to support their infusion within their TCNJ skills classes. So every student in the College of New Jersey typically takes 4 courses a semester. Our student take 1 the first semester, and then if they show prowess and they want to, they take 2, and then 2 courses in our CCS program. So it's a combination of such. But it's a 4-year program fall, spring terms. We have an optional summer semester, which is based on a 5-week themed and community-based kind of like model. Last year we studied that we were infused in a class with as an intro to sociology, and we took the students for 10 days over to Amsterdam to study the European culture of the EU, and we took those who attended, and then we came back. So we do a lot of traveling in that during that time, and we link it to the academic curriculum. We also have developed the 5th-year program, which is kind of like an independently designed program for students who graduate from our program, but are really say, I'm really not cooked. I really want to have a trajectory to my next life, and I have some ideas I'd like to do, in which they continue their education, but in a very specialized way with our guidance, advice, and again, you have to apply for that. This just tells us there is a certification now in the U.S. Department of Education called the Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Program, or a CTP. We were we were the first to get that certification and continue to have that certification so that local school districts at 18 could use our program as a transition program. And we have a portion of our students who are supported by local school districts to go to our program, live there, and instead of going to into their programs or that they have within their local school districts. They're admitted to the college for completing this 4-year liberal learning. We have about 42 students at any given time, all representing freshman, sophomore, junior, and 5th year. We only take 2 5th-year students. We only take about 10 summer students. They engage in all the academic, career readiness, campus social experiences. They live in homes that are owned by TCNJ the foundation, TCNJ Corporation, excuse me, that are contiguous to the campus. In other words, our students will go out the back door of these homes, and they are on campus, and they live with peer mentors in those homes. It's highly competitive, and we are matriculated, non-degree bearing status. There is no certification yet for these kind of programs, but Congress has worked well. When Congress gets back to work on things, they are working on it. It's constantly, and advocates are constantly there to see if we can be part of Middle States accreditation. So we don't have an accreditation that is linked to the colleges, but that's in the making as we're moving forward. I'm not going to go over this, but I'd be more than happy if my colleagues could share this PowerPoint with everyone so they can review it on their own. But it is it shows what our values and our mission statement is. We really believe in full inclusion, and we believe in many things about including the developing of interdependent adults, etc. So who are our students? They're between 18 and 25. They have a documented intellectual disability. They have to show motivation to want to go to college. They have some basic literacy skills, and they have to align their behavior with our student expectations, and they have to have the physical stamina to navigate the campus. Our students go all over campus. There's no one, they are independent, and so they need to know how to navigate that campus. And nobody has, that we have ever admitted since our first cohort in 2006, has ever not been able to do that. The goals here are independent living and person-centered planning, meaning what do you want to do with your life? We kind of construct their courses that they take in at the college around their interest. So there's been over 250 classes that our students have taken in engineering, sciences, in art, in education, in all of the schools that are represented in our college. And we're a little bit weak on the business school and on the science schools, because those take such rigorous curriculums. Career awareness is important. Our students are, at the last year, spend 3 days off campus in internships, such as the New Jersey Superior Court, such as Capitol Health, such as local schools, et cetera, depending upon their interest and what they have been being trained for. So let me let you listen to if this works, and I hope it does, to 2 of our students. This happens to be 2 twins that are in our program currently. Okay. Unfortunately, it's not working, and I don't know. I knew this was going to happen to me. I tested it out before, but for some odd reason, it's not working within here. But these 2 gentlemen, and if you send this PowerPoint to everyone, you can access it on your own computer, but they speak to what it's like to be college students at TCNJ, and they show such pride in being TCNJ students. They're terrific guys, and are just texted me, I believe this morning, about when are we going back on campus, which of course the answer is I don't know, which is the answer to a lot of these questions recently. Our goals are to create this inclusive learning environment, and our college has been so welcoming to our students that they have been able to become part of the fabric of TCNJ. That tends to be a welcoming place that respects diversity. We've had almost no difficulties, or anyone, and including professors, over 200 professors that have welcomed our students into their classes. And in here, there's another another embedded interview with a professor that says how the presence of CCS students impacts positively on their class. This is Dr. Carroll. He's an affiliate faculty, and he was one of 3 people who sat with me 18 years ago. And the other one was Rick Blumberg, to create the program. And he talks about the influence of instruction, that many of the things that professors do to assist our students help many of the other students as well as the other students, and how it has affected them, which is what this peer mentor did. This young woman is a teacher. She's in teacher preparation, and she speaks to how the professional preparation benefited CCS. One thing we want to make sure you know is that it's not just the School of Education and preparing teachers, but engineers and future CEOs and future nurses. Our CCS students and their work with them, and we have had peer mentors from every school at the college, really impact their understanding and depth of understanding about the gifts, the talents that our students will bring to them. We're hoping when they're out in the world, they will make the change that we're trying to make and forward. So our outcomes, well, they get a certificate, not a degree. not a degree because we're non-degree bearing. But once accreditation occurs at some point, and we or the administration at TCNJ allows, we'll go for accreditation, and then degrees will come out, specialized degrees. They get a transcript of completion. We have seen through our own research increases in academic skill awareness. I'm engaging in a study now to show the development of reading and writing in specific, and as well as career awareness and readiness skills. You'll see that 80% of our graduates are working for pay in competitive employment, and 80% of our graduates are satisfied with community engagement. If anybody's interested in reading an academic article, I did a post-school study survey, pretty extensive one with all the graduates from 2010 to 2017 regarding how their perceptions of what they gained has helped them in their life, what that they've learned from that, and where they are in terms of community engagement, in terms of work, in terms of all of those areas. I can tell you that they all said the one thing that they really do need was for us to follow them along a bit, to help them instead of just letting them graduate and not giving them services or support. They need a little bit more support in solidifying a career, because we encourage our students to look for jobs that are career bound, that have a trajectory that they can go up and rise in a company or an organization. And so that's one thing we're working on. We're working with state government to see if we can get some more funds to enable us to do that. The independent living skills are huge. They learn to wash their clothes, okay? It's like every other college student does. They learn to do simple, to cook. They learn to live together communally, which is something that every college student really could benefit from. And I believe that they improve immensely. I mean, to watch a freshman and then to see them as seniors is an amazing thing for me. And we have alumni activities, but not as many as we'd like to. We're a very small staff of only 5 people, and to meet the needs of 42 students. Just to give you some idea, there are private schools for kids with disabilities that have about 100 students, and they have about at least 80 staff members. We have 5 for 42, so you do the math, which is fine. We're doing fine. I wish this again you could listen. This is a graduate. This is David Heller. If you Google his name in YouTube, David Heller, he's an amazing young man, and he speaks to how the CCS program, and I say we because it's not what we do, it's what the TCNJ community does. So he will speak to that, and you could listen a little bit more. So I tried to go through that in the time frame that we had here. This is just one of our graduating class. I think it's the 3rd graduating class we had. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
And you did it, Jerry, with a minute to spare.
I know. I know.
No, that was great. Thank you very much. Again, it's a lot of information, so we appreciate you being able to condense it down and share that with us. I think I know I learned something new from it myself, and I am employed by the college, so that was great. Thank you. We did have a question come in, and it is, are these students able to take, quote, regular classes such as music performance, acting, etc., for example?
Absolutely. And if students become, for instance, we had a student who was really interested in art and had a real talent in metal sculpture. So his program was geared to having classes that would develop that skill. So he ended up having a 5th year and doing a and creating a sculpture for the college for us that we can display. And yeah, absolutely, we gear students to their own interest, criminology, whatever they're interested in.
Very cool. Thank you.
And any questions that anybody has after this, just like with Phillip, please email me. I'm available, not a problem. I could set up Zooms and talk to you about it. We're having an open house. Oh my God, I should know when that is, but maybe I can give you the date. It is in October, and it's going to be a virtual open house, and I can give it to you, and we could send it out to those who have joined us today.
Yeah, that would be great. I will consolidate a lot of these takeaway points from both of your presentations.
Terrific.
and email all of our registrants. So that would be great.
Great.
So with that, I think we will wrap. And again, thank you both so much. This was very valuable, a lot of information that I think is going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys for organizing this. It was wonderful.
Yes.
It was great. So we'll see you guys later then. All right.
Take care, everyone. Take care.
Take care.